ऐतिहासिक विधेयक, क्योंकि संसद के इतिहास में कभी कभार बहुत बरस गुजर जाने के बाद कोई ऐसा क्षण आता है, कोई ऐसी घड़ी आती है जबकि तत्कालीन माननीय सदस्यों को, सिटिंग मेंबर्स को ऐसा मौका नसीब होता है कि वो राष्ट्र की जीवन यात्रा को एक नया रुख दे सकें, एक नई दिशा दे सकें। और इसलिए यदि आज हमें इस क्षण की अहमियत का शायद उतना शिद्दत से एहसास नहीं हो रहा, लेकिन मुझे यकीन है आने वाली नस्लें जब इस मुल्क का इतिहास, तारीख लिखेंगी तो ये विधेयक एक मील के पत्थर, एक माइलस्टोन की तरह उल्लेखित किया जाएगा। एक ऐसा विधेयक, अध्यक्ष महोदय, जो कभी किसी ने उम्मीद ना की, कभी कल्पना ना की, कभी तवक्को ना थी, और ये इसलिए संभव हुआ that we have a Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, who has the capacity to take out-of-box decisions and to break the taboos of the past. इस विधेयक का टाइटल है सस्टेनेबल हार्नेसिंग एंड एडवांसमेंट ऑफ न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी फॉर ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग इंडिया, अर्थात जैसे आपने कहा शांति। और इस टाइटल का महत्व इसलिए भी बढ़ जाता है कि आज से 60-70 बरस पहले जब हिंदुस्तान ने अपना परमाणु कार्यक्रम शुरू किया तो दुनिया भर में एक बड़ा तनाव का माहौल था। हिरोशिमा नागासाकी को हुए कुछ ही बरस गुजरे थे और बहुत सारे देश हिंदुस्तान को शक की निगाह से देखने लगे थे। और उस समय परमाणु कार्यक्रम के जन्मदाता, द फाउंडिंग फादर ऑफ इंडियाज न्यूक्लियर प्रोग्राम, होमी भाभा, had declared to the world that India's nuclear program will be dedicated to peaceful purposes. Speaker sir, today the moment of vindication has come, and the vindication was destined to happen through Prime Minister Modi. अब इस बिल को लाने का भाव क्या है, कारण क्या है? जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं कि भारत का भौगोलिक स्तर पर रोल भी बढ़ रहा है, भूमिका भी बढ़ रही है। एंड इफ वी हैव टू बी अ ग्लोबल प्लेयर इफेक्टिवली, वी हैव टू लिव अप टू ग्लोबल बेंचमार्क्स, फॉलो ग्लोबल पैरामीटर्स एंड अडॉप्ट ग्लोबल स्ट्रेटजीज। आज सारा विश्व क्लीन एनर्जी की जानिब बढ़ चुका है और हमने भी अपने लिए लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है कि न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी 100 गीगावाट बाई 2047, जब हिंदुस्तान अपनी आज़ादी की 100वीं सालगिरह मनाएगा। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने पदभार संभालते ही कॉप मीटिंग में घोषणा की थी नेट जीरो बाई 2070। उस लक्ष्य की प्राप्ति के लिए और बढ़ती हुई एनर्जी की ज़रूरतों को पूरा करने के लिए तथा आत्मनिर्भर भारत के लक्ष्य को पूरी तरह प्राप्त करने के लिए ये भी जरूरी है कि हम पेट्रोलियम, फॉसिल पदार्थों पर अपनी निर्भरता कम करें। उस सब को मिला करके जहां आज हमारी न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी की कैपेसिटी मात्र 8.8 गीगावाट है, हालांकि जब ये सरकार आई तो तब इतना भी नहीं था, उस समय केवल 4.4 गीगावाट थी, दुगने से अधिक हम बढ़ गए। लेकिन उसको 100 गीगावाट तक पहुंचाना ताकि 2047 में हमारी एनर्जी की रिक्वायरमेंट का 10% हिस्सा न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी से आए, बिकॉज न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी इज इन सम वेज सुपीरियर टू अदर सोर्सेज ऑफ रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, because renewable energy may not always provide 24/7 reliability of supply, which is only through the nuclear energy. और इसको लेकर के अगर आप कहें तो संक्षेप में मैं बताऊं कि क्या हम, ठीक है, अध्यक्ष जी का कहना है कि इसके बाद पूरा जवाब दिया जाएगा, अन्यथा अगर आपका आदेश होगा तो कुछ महत्वपूर्ण बिंदु अगर उल्लेखित करने होंगे तो मैं उसके लिए भी तैयार हूं।
अभी आपको ही जिम्मेदारी है। माननीय मनीष तिवारी जी।
धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष जी। Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to oppose the sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, alias the Shanti Bill 2025. This bill seeks to repeal two seminal legislations, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Atomic Energy Act of 1962 and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damages Act 2010 and replace it with a new architecture. Since the Honorable Minister, in his introduction, chose to speak about the history of India's nuclear program, allow me to spend 5 minutes recapping as to how did we get to this point. It was India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who pioneered India's nuclear quest. On the 3rd of August 1948, he set up the Atomic Energy Commission, which was anchored by the legendary scientist, the late Dr. Homi Bhabha. On the 3rd of January 1954, it was the Nehru government which set up the Atomic Energy Establishment in Trombay. And on the 12th of January 1967, after the very tragic demise of late Dr. Homi Bhabha in a plane crash, AI 101 went into Mont Blanc, the mountain, on the 24th of January 1966. The Atomic Energy Establishment in Trombay was dedicated in his name and renamed as the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. India's nuclear program till about the late 60s or even the early 70s was a peaceful quest. But it was on the 18th of May 1974 that Prime Minister, late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, carried out the first peaceful nuclear explosion. The test was called the Smiling Buddha, and the Buddha did indeed smile. And it would be important here to recap that Bangladesh 1971, the peaceful nuclear explosion of 1974, and then the incorporation of Sikkim into India in 4 years, Mrs. Gandhi had changed the geopolitical map of South Asia and put India on the nuclear stage globally. However, when a nation takes bold steps, it comes with a consequence. And India's peaceful nuclear explosion came with the consequence that the P5 nations, those who had established the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1967, came together and formed the Nuclear Suppliers Group, but also called the London Club. And interestingly, these were about 14 countries which went across the Cold War divide, the East Bloc and the West Bloc. And the only objective of the Nuclear Suppliers Group or the London Club was to deny India access to nuclear technology. On the 11th and the 13th of May 1998, Prime Minister Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, late Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, carried out India's second series of nuclear tests, but the sanctions against India only tightened after that, despite the Jaswant Singh Strobe-Talbot dialogue, which went across a couple of continents at that point in time. Finally, it fell to a UPA government under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to break that nuclear apartheid. And it was in the July of 2005 that the Indo-US nuclear deal was initiated. On the 18th of August 2008, the India-IAE Safeguards Agreement was signed. On the 6th of September 2008, India got a waiver from the Nuclear Suppliers Group, and we've not got that waiver after that till now. It has been over 17 years, and we've not got membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. And finally, on the 10th of October 2008, the Indo-US civil nuclear deal, also called the 123 agreement, was signed. And ironically, while Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's government was trying to break nuclear apartheid, जो परमाणु रंग भेद नीति थी, उसको जब तोड़ने का प्रयास किया जा रहा था, हमारे परम मित्र जो उस तरफ बैठे हैं, उन्होंने क्या किया? वो 23 जुलाई 2008 को उस सरकार के खिलाफ, जो भारत की परमाणु रंग भेद से जो पीड़ित था, उसको तोड़ने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, उनके खिलाफ इस सदन में अविश्वास प्रस्ताव लेके आए। It is important that you reflect on your own conduct. When the UPA government was trying to break India's nuclear isolation and nuclear apartheid, you brought a vote of no confidence against that government. It's another matter that no confidence motion was defeated 275 to 256 with 11 abstentions. Now let me, अरे इतिहास तुमको समझाना बहुत जरूरी है. History is very important because you people try to derail India's nuclear program. You tried to derail India's nuclear program. You were an impediment in breaking India's nuclear apartheid. That's a history that you should not forget. That's a history you should not forget. You covered yourself with ignominy. आपने भारत का जो परमाणु ट्रैजेक्टरी थी, उसको डिरेल करने की कोशिश की राजनीतिक कारणों से. अध्यक्ष जी,
प्लीज एड्रेस द चेयर.
इनको बिठाइए. लेट द हाउस बी इन ऑर्डर. Let the house be in order. Let the house be in order. सर, सच्चाई कड़वी होती है अध्यक्ष जी.
I will be giving opportunity to you to
अध्यक्ष
speak.
जी,
Let him complete.
सच्चाई कड़वी होती है. Now let me.
Please address the chair. आप बैठिएगा, please.
Now, Mr. Chairperson, sir. अरे तो शुरुआत है अभी. अनुराग जी जरा बैठ जाइए. Now let me, Mr. Chairperson, sir, come to the merits of this bill. Now, government has brought the present bill to open up the civilian nuclear sector to private participation. Clause 3-1-C of the bill. There is speculation that government wants to bring in 49% to 100% foreign direct investment into the sector. What strikes me as very strange, Mr. Chairperson, sir, that a conglomerate which has built an empire on leased public assets announces its intent to enter the nuclear energy sector in late November 2025, and in December 2025 we have this bill. Is it a coincidence that the Adani group of companies announces its intent to participate in the civilian nuclear sector, and within a month we have this bill in the House? Is it a coincidence? I'm merely raising a question. I'm not imputing any motives. I am not insinuating anything. I am merely...
1 second, please. Honorable Minister, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'm not yielding. I am not yielding. The minister can reply when he has to. No, I am not yielding. No, I am not yielding. No, I am not yielding.
The Honorable Speaker asked me to be brief and not to touch upon the salient features of the bill. Otherwise, I was going ahead with that. Now, nowhere in the bill has there been any intention, obviously or inadvertently, reflecting that this is meant to benefit a certain house. Now, this is an allegation which puts the entire house into disrepute. We are practicing the highest norms of democracy, and nowhere in the bill. So this is totally an unfounded and a politically motivated charge which has no reflection on the body of the bill.
आप बैठिएगा.
Mr. Chairperson, sir.
Honorable Minister has replied.
Mr. Chairperson, sir, I wasn't making any insinuation. I wasn't imputing any motives. I was just saying that is it just coincidental that this has happened?
Honorable MP, sir, you already mentioned it could be a
So
coincidence.
let me go further, Mr. Chairperson, sir. And let me come to, since this bill seeks to repeal the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damages Act 2010, let me also recap what happened in this House on the 25th of August 2010, since I had led the debate on that particular bill on that particular day in this very House. So on the 25th of August 2010, the then MOS Prime Minister's office, Mr. Jiten Singh's predecessor, Mr. Prithviraj Chavan, came before this House and he said, and I quote, and I'm quoting from the proceedings of the Lok Sabha, "Sir, I have come before this House and say with all humility that there is an unprecedented political consensus across the political stream, including the civil society or whatever people we could bring on board. There was a slight contention about a few items. We explained the logic of why we brought in some of the amendments, particularly the amendment to Clause 17. Now, what is this Clause 17? Specifically, Clause 17B, let me read it out for the perusal of this House. So, the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010 said, and I'll read 17B, the operator of the nuclear installation, after paying compensation for nuclear damage in accordance with Section 6, shall have a right of recourse where B says the nuclear incident has resulted as a consequence of an act of supplier or his employee, which includes supply of equipment or material with patent or latent defects or substandard services. Now, this was a clause on which there was a consensus across the House, across all political parties, that this needs to be included. Now, let me contextualize it. Why was this important? Because the Department of Atomic Energy, which leads India's nuclear program, felt that if we are going to be going into a collaboration where foreign suppliers are going to come in, there needs to be a clause in the bills or a section in the Act whereby if there is a nuclear incident because of the design in the product which has been supplied, that nuclear supplier should be made liable. And this was supported by the then by the former External Affairs and Finance Minister of the BJP, who unfortunately had been expelled from the party in August 2009, came back on the 24th of June 2010, and this debate was happening in the August of 2008. And let me quote late Jaswant Singh Ji. So late Jaswant Singh Ji, while speaking on the bill, he says, it is really Clause 17B of the bill, dealing with the operator's right to recourse, or the right to recourse, which then became a bone in our throat. बोले वो हमारी गली में हड्डी फंस गई. You have worked overtime to remove that bone. So late Mr. Jaswant Singh, the left parties, every other section of this House was unanimous that suppliers' liability should form a part of the civil nuclear liability regime. And what do I find? What I find is that when you read Clause 11 of the present bill, and the minister is here, if I'm making a mistake, I'm open to be corrected. But I did not find a single clause or a single word which says anything about supplier liability. The supplier liability has been completely removed. Now, God forbid, if a nuclear accident or a nuclear incident was to take place, and since we are going to be dependent upon foreign suppliers, especially when we are opening up the nuclear energy sector to private participation, we are going to allow foreign direct investment, 49%, 51%, 76%, 100%. I do not know how much to come in. Then, under those circumstances, shouldn't the supplier be liable? If there is a defect in the product, in fact, it is going to indemnify your own domestic players about whom you made such a big noise a while ago. God forbid, if some incident was to take place. And so therefore it is very important. I know a large number of countries around the world have had reservations with regard to suppliers' liability, now going back 15 years. And I do not want to get into the business of naming countries or companies, but it is important to understand, and the minister must explain, how removing the supplier liability clause is actually going to help. In my humble estimation, it is going to harm India. Now let me move on to the next aspect, clause 70. Now, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. There has been a lot of concern now going back many, many years, Mr. Chairperson, sir, that is the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board really autonomous? Or is it an extension of the Department of Atomic Energy? If we are opening up India's nuclear energy sector to private participation, what you require is an autonomous, independent regulator who can be a neutral umpire. Since there is no clarity in the bill about how independent or autonomous the regulator is, I would definitely want the minister to clarify with regard to this. Next, I come to clause 30. The liability clause. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, there have been a couple of big nuclear accidents. The 3 Mile Island accident on 28th March 1979, Chernobyl 26th April 1986, Fukushima 11th March 2011, and there is continuing concern over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear reactor in Ukraine, which is now under Russian control. So therefore, when you talk about nuclear energy or you talk about a nuclear incident, the consequences can be absolutely alarming. Now, clause 13 limits the liability to 300 million SDR, special drawing rights, which is approximately about 410 million US dollars. Even in the case of the Bhopal gas tragedy, the compensation awarded was $470 million. And this I'm talking about 15 years back. Why is the government imposing these liability caps? In fact, the liability should be at least 10,000 crores, irrespective of whether a reactor is 3,600 megawatt or a reactor is 100 megawatt, because God forbid if a nuclear incident takes place, the damage either ways can be catastrophic. So I have not understood this concept of a graded liability, and I would be very happy to be enlightened by the minister on this. Now I come to clause 15.3 of the bill. Shanti Rakho. Now I come to clause 15.3 of the bill, Mr. Chairperson, sir. Now, it exempts government-owned nuclear installations from insurance cover. It says government-owned nuclear installations do not require insurance cover. I asked why. And if the answer of the government is going to be that government-owned nuclear installations have a sovereign cover, then that should be made a proviso in the bill. Then there should be a proviso in the bill that should say that the central government will assume liability in case of a nuclear incident installing any of the government's nuclear installations. That should be explicitly stated in the bill. Then let me come to clause 19A, clause 25, subclause 4, subclause B, disposal of radioactive waste. Now, Mr. Chairperson, sir, spent fuel, uranium and plutonium remains toxic for thousands and thousands of years. Most countries store this in the facility itself. Now, this bill, except mentioning this fact, does not provide a robust framework as to how radioactive waste needs to be dealt with. It cannot be a function of delegated legislation, left to rules and regulations. This is a very serious issue. There has to be a schedule to the bill which explains as to how radioactive waste should be dealt with. My penultimate 2 points, and I'm going to conclude, Mr. Chairperson, sir. Now, what this bill is doing, it is prioritizing uranium-based reactor technologies, which undermines the entire third stage of India's nuclear program, which is thorium-based, and also the molten salt technology, MSR reactors, which should have been the logical path or the logical corollary of India's nuclear trajectory. Now, when I looked at this bill, and I looked at it in great detail, the sense that I got that if this bill goes ahead in this present form, it will undermine India's energy independence, and it will also undermine India's commitment to its clean energy goals. So under those circumstances, with the greatest amount of humility and an absolute sense of profound responsibility, I would humbly like to demand, request, beseech the government that this bill is very important. Please send it to a joint parliamentary committee. And by the way, Mr. Chairperson, sir, since there was a paucity of time, I've only made the highway points, what we in law call the highway points. There is a lot of devil in the detail, which I have not even come to. And so therefore, this bill needs to be examined word by word, line by line, and only after that should this bill come back to this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Chairman, sir.
माननीय श्री शशांक मणि जी।
प्रणाम देवरिया। अध्यक्ष महोदय, आज आपने मुझे एक महत्वपूर्ण विधेयक पर चर्चा करने के लिए समय दिया, इसके लिए आपको धन्यवाद देता हूं। यह विधेयक मेरे हिसाब से देश को नई गति देगा और विकसित भारत के रथ को आगे बढ़ाएगा। यह बिल आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के प्रत्यक्ष नेतृत्व के कारण इस सदन में उपस्थित है और इस बिल के कारण मेरे हिसाब से देश के हर व्यक्ति को लाभ मिलेगा। सस्टेनेबल हार्नेसिंग एंड एडवांसमेंट ऑफ न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी फॉर ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग इंडिया, शांति 2025 बिल एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बिल, एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण समय पे आया है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, इस बिल में जो हमारी बिखरी हुई पिछले विधेयक थे, जिसमें 1962 का एटॉमिक एनर्जी एक्ट और 2010 का न्यूक्लियर लायबिलिटी बिल समाहित हो गया है, एक एकाग्र रूप से समाहित हुआ है। और इसमें मैं समझता हूं कि आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के सबके प्रयास की भी ऊर्जा है। इसमें न केवल सरकार, समाज और प्राइवेट सेक्टर का पूरा निवेश होगा, और उसी के साथ साथ जो सबसे ज्वलंत समस्या हम सबको दिख रही है कि कैसे हम लोग अपने आधारभूत ढांचे को, अपनी एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी को आगे ले जाएं, लेकिन उसी के साथ साथ हम लोग अपने पर्यावरण का भी ध्यान दें। लेकिन इस बिल में अध्यक्ष महोदय अन्य उपलब्धियों का भी उल्लेख है, जैसे कि इस बिल में परमाणु टेक्नोलॉजी से, प्रौद्योगिकी से, कृषि उद्योग में, हमारे फूड सिक्योरिटी में स्वास्थ्य केंद्रों में, उद्योग में, अन्य चीज़ों में भी बहुत बड़ा निवेश होगा। इसलिए मैं समझता हूं कि इस बिल की उपयोगिता न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी से भी ज़्यादा बड़ी है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारा देश स्वावलंबन में, आत्मनिर्भरता में बहुत सालों से परमाणु उपयोग में आगे बढ़ता रहा है। कुछ लोगों को उल्लेख किया गया, लेकिन उसमें होमी भाभा जी और विक्रम साराभाई जी का बहुत बड़ा योगदान है। मैं आज वंदे मातरम के 150वें वर्षगांठ पे इन महापुरुषों का नमन करता हूं, क्योंकि उनके होते होते आज की तारीख में हम लोगों ने अपनी अर्थव्यवस्था ही नहीं, अपनी सुरक्षा के लिए भी अपने आप को संभल रखा है। और मैं चुनौती देना चाहता हूं विपक्ष को, जिन्होंने बात करी परमाणु बम की, तो जब तक अटल जी ने यह निर्णय नहीं लिया कि हम लोग अपने परमाणु में सिक्योरिटी में 1978 में पूरी तरह से 1998 में पूरी तरह से अपने आप को सक्षम करेंगे, तब तक 24 साल तक पूर्ववर्ती सरकारें शिथिल बैठी रहीं, स्टेल्थ मोड में चलाती रहीं। ये गलत है। हम लोगों ने पहली बार इसका नेतृत्व किया और उसके होते होते आज की तारीख में हम लोग सशक्त राष्ट्र हैं। लेकिन अध्यक्ष महोदय, सिर्फ सुरक्षा से आज की तारीख में काम नहीं चलेगा। आज की तारीख में परमाणु उपयोग का मेरे हिसाब से प्रयोग कई अन्य दिशाओं में भी होना चाहिए, और इसके लिए सबके प्रयास की जो आभा इस बिल में है उसकी मैं सराहना करता हूं, उसका मैं एक तरह से साधुवाद करता हूं। अध्यक्ष महोदय, इस बिल में एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण चुनौती का सामना करने के लिए हम लोग ने इस बिल को लाए हैं, और उसमें थर्मल पावर की वजह से अगर किसी भी व्यक्ति को अपने एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी के होते होते आगे चलना पड़ेगा तो इसमें प्रदूषण बहुत होगा, इसलिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। और उसी के साथ साथ थर्मल पावर के साथ साथ टिकाऊ व्यवस्था, जैसे कि आज की तारीख में डेटा सेंटर में 24/7 बिजली की आवश्यकता है, और उसमें हम लोग को टिकाऊ बिजली की आवश्यकता है। इसमें न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी की बहुत बड़ा प्रयोग होगा। लेकिन उसी के साथ साथ मैं समझता हूं कि हम पहले ऐसे देश नहीं हैं, कई ऐसे देश हैं जिन्होंने टिकाऊ व्यवस्था में न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी का प्रयोग किया है। उदाहरण के तौर पर फ्रांस को देखिए, फ्रांस में लगभग 65% बिजली आज की तारीख में न्यूक्लियर की व्यवस्था से हो रही है, और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अमेरिका में भी प्राइवेट सेक्टर उसकी 80% की बिजली ले रहा है। मतलब विश्व की बिजली का सबसे बड़ा खपत यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अमेरिका में है, वहां पर लगभग 30% बिजली न्यूक्लियर की है, वहां पर 80% प्राइवेट सेक्टर दे रहा है। तो जो सेफ्टी की बात विपक्ष करता है, उसमें सिद्ध हो गया कई सालों से कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर भी सेफ्टी के मामले में हो सकता है यदि उसको ठीक ठाक रूप से सुचारू किया जाए। अध्यक्ष महोदय, इस बिल के होने के लिए मैं 5 बिंदु रखना चाहता हूं। क्या कारण है इस बिल को ले जाने के लिए? सर्वप्रथम, विकसित भारत के लिए, जैसा कि मंत्री जी ने बताया, हम लोग को 100 गीगावाट की आवश्यकता है, जो कि परमाणु से हुआ है। और उसमें अगर आज के परिवेश में देखा जाए, जो 9 गीगावाट की व्याख्या की गई, उसमें आज की तारीख में सिर्फ 2% बिजली न्यूक्लियर की है, और उस समय 10% हो जाएगी। अगर इस 100 गीगावाट को आगे ले जाना है तो उसमें आज की तारीख में NPCIL न्यूक्लियर पावर कॉर्पोरेशन 50 की जिम्मेदारी ले सकता है। लेकिन अन्य 50 के लिए हमें और साधन चाहिए, हमें और टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, और लोग चाहिए, ताकि इसमें विकसित भारत में कोई कमी न रहे। इसके लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है कि हम लोग प्राइवेट सेक्टर को लाएं, हम लोग अन्य निवेशों को लाएं, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण इसकी आवश्यकता है। और उसी के साथ साथ दूसरी आवश्यकता ये भी है कि हम लोग आने वाले समय में NPCL, जो एकाग्र रूप से आज की तारीख में हमारे देश में इसका नेतृत्व कर रहा है, उसमें एक मोनोपोली पावर है। जब किसी भी चीज़ की मोनोपोली होती है तो उसमें मेरे हिसाब से नवाचार नहीं होता है। नवाचार के अभाव में अपना ये इंडस्ट्री आगे नहीं बढ़ पाएगा, और इसके लिए अध्यक्ष महोदय बहुत आवश्यक है कि हम लोग अन्य लोगों को लाएं। और इसके होते होते इस बिल में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण प्राविधान है कि कैसे हम लोग प्रौद्योगिकी, पूंजी और प्रतिभा के आधार पर अन्य चीज लाएं। और उसके लिए 20,000 करोड़ का निवेश आदरणीय निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने पिछले बजट में SMR रिएक्टर के लिए दिया था, क्योंकि SMR के माध्यम से आज की तारीख में न्यूक्लियर पावर भी विकेंद्री हो रहा है। SMR मतलब स्मॉल मॉड्यूलर रिएक्टर के माध्यम से इस प्रकार की हवा चल रही है। तीसरा कारण यह है कि विधेयक में परमाणु प्रौद्योगिकी को भूमिका का भी विस्तार हो रहा है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, इसमें ईंधन चक्र की गतिविधियां, उपकरण निर्माण, बिजली उत्पादन और संयंत्र संचालन भी शामिल है, यह भी कड़े सुरक्षा मानकों की निगरानी में। इसके अतिरिक्त इसमें फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट का 49% का प्रावधान है। इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर हम लोग को धन की आवश्यकता होगी तो कोई कमी नहीं होगी उस विकसित भारत के रथ को आगे ले जाने के लिए। मैं बताना चाहता हूं सदन को कि जब मैं सिंदूर के लिए वाशिंगटन DC गया था, तो कई वहां के पॉलिसी एक्सपर्ट्स ने इसके बारे में हमसे प्रश्न पूछे, उत्सुकता थी। मेरा पूरा विश्वास है कि फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट भी इसमें आएगा। चौथा कारण यह है कि विधेयक परमाणु ऊर्जा नियामक बोर्ड, एटॉमिक एनर्जी रेगुलेटरी बोर्ड, जिसकी चर्चा अभी की गई, उसके माध्यम से नियामक ढांचे को सुदृढ़ करता है, जो उद्योग के लिए सुरक्षा सहित सभी आवश्यक नियम सुनिश्चित करेगा। यह ध्यान देने के योग्य है कि परमाणु ऊर्जा 1962 से लागू हुआ है और तब से अब तक प्रौद्योगिकी और प्रक्रियात्मक में व्यापक परिवर्तन हो चुका है। यह नया नियामक ढांचा सुनिश्चित करेगा कि उद्योग कड़े सुरक्षा मानकों का पालन करके अनुसंधान एवं विकास R&D सरकार के साथ ही रहेगा। ये भी इस विधेयक में है, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। भारत अंतर्राष्ट्रीय परमाणु ऊर्जा एजेंसी के परिवहन, निगरानी और ईंधन वापसी के जुड़े हुए नियमों का प्रारंभिक हस्ताक्षर कर रहा है और यह नियम इसके अनुरूप चलेगा। अंत में यह विधेयक परमाणु उद्योग के लिए आधुनिक और एकीकृत कानून ढांचा प्रस्तुत करेगा। अभी इसका उल्लेख कर रहे थे, जिसमें एक समर्पित परमाणु न्यायाधिकारी परमाणु दायित्व व्यवस्था में सुधार और निवेश का आकर्षण होगा। मैं समझता हूं जिस जोखिम की बात की वो सरासर गलत है। इसमें बहुत जिम्मेदारी से इसका संचालन के लिए आकार दिया गया है, जिसमें अंतर्राष्ट्रीय परमाणु ऊर्जा एजेंसी का जो SDR का उल्लेख किया गया था वो बड़े जिम्मेदारी से किया गया है और मेरे हिसाब से अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नियमों के हिसाब से किया गया है। और मुझे बताया गया है कि 2000 करोड़ रुपए का प्रावधान ऑलरेडी हम लोगों ने ले लिया है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, कुछ ऐसे विषय हैं जिसके लिए मुझे पहली बार इस सदन में अंग्रेजी में बोलने का मौका मिल रहा है, क्योंकि मैं समझता हूं कि कुछ ऐसी टेक्निकल चीज़ें हैं जिसके बारे में आपसे बात करना चाहता हूं अंग्रेजी में। स्पीकर सर, एट द आउटसेट द बिल क्लैरिफाइज द स्कोप ऑफ न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी फॉर मॉडर्न इंडिया। The definition clauses explicitly extend nuclear applications to healthcare, agriculture, food preservation, water management, industry, research, and emerging sectors such as artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and semiconductor fabrication. Speaker, sir, this is a very important point. It legally recognizes nuclear energy not merely as a power source, but as an enabling infrastructure for a technology-driven economy. This is extremely important, sir, because in this case, the definition of nuclear energy and nuclear power has been transformed by this bill. This is fundamental. For instance, by defining radiation facilities separately from nuclear power plants, the bill brings medical imaging centers, cancer radiographic therapy units, and industrial irradiation facilities within a uniform safety framework, reducing regulatory ambiguity and improving compliance. Adhyaksh Mahoday, one of the most consequential features of the bill is the introduction of a structured licensing and safety authorization regime under Chapter 2. Clause 3 allows not only government entities, but also government companies, private companies, and joint ventures to apply for licenses to set up, operate nuclear facilities subject to strict conditions. This marks a clear policy shift towards controlled private sector participation. And I emphasize the word control, the Honourable Speaker, sir. At the same time, the bill draws a firm red line by reserving sensitive activities such as fuel reprocessing, enrichment beyond notified thresholds, and high-level waste management exclusively for the central government. This balance helps attract investment and technological collaboration without diluting sovereign control over strategically sensitive parts of the nuclear fuel cycle. Safety is non-negotiable. Clause 4 mandates safety authorization for all users of radioactive substances and radiation-generating equipment, including their manufacture, transport, storage, and disposal. This support will allow the regulator to track radioactive sources through a national register and intervene during radiological emergencies. The bill empowers the government to take over unsafe radioactive material and recover disposable costs from the operator, creating a strong deterrent against negligence. The provision of mining resources under Clause 5 reinforces India's long-standing policy of state control over uranium and thorium. Any discovery of such materials must be reported to the government, and all extracted material vests in the central government. This ensures resource security for India's three-stage nuclear program and its long-term goal of thorium utilization, while also allowing compensation where private interests are affected. From a national perspective, this prevents speculative exploitation of strategic minerals and aligns extraction with national energy planning. Chapter 3 addresses a long-standing concern around nuclear liability and public confidence. The bill clearly fixes primary responsibility for nuclear damage on the operator, while also defining circumstances where liability is excluded, such as exceptional natural disaster or armed conflict. My honourable friend made a lot of song and dance about this, but this has been very well researched and has been put extremely very carefully by a number of experts who have been behind this bill. Clause 13 caps liability in line with international norms by linking in the special drawing rights, which is also mentioned. Clause 14 makes the central government responsible for compensation beyond the operator's cap or in government-owned installations. This clarity is important for two reasons. First, we want to reassure our citizens that they have this recourse. And second, it provides certainty to investors and insurers, which is critical for expanding nuclear capacity. The provision requiring operators to maintain insurance or financial security before operation further strengthens accountability. Institutionally, this is a major point. Institutionally, the bill gives statutory backing to Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. My honourable member mentioned that this has to be independent. It is fully independent under Chapter 4 by detailing appointment procedures, tenure, conflict of interest restrictions and powers. It strengthens the regulator's autonomy and credibility. I would invite the opposition to join hands in making sure that this is fully independent instead of criticizing it. Clause 24 grants the board wide-ranging powers to set safety standards, regulate radiation exposure limits, conduct inspections, and engage transparently with the public. This is significant because regulatory credibility is a key determinant of public trust. आज की तारीख में जो public का विश्वास है उसको जीतने के लिए इस बोर्ड की बहुत बड़ी आवश्यकता है. At the same time, Clause 25 allows the central government to carve out strategic and defence-related activities from civilian regulation, preserving much-needed national security imperatives. The enforcement framework under Chapter 5 and 9 is notably robust. Inspectors are empowered to enter facilities, conduct investigation, seize material, and suspend operations where safety is compromised. Penalties and criminal liabilities are clearly laid out for violations, including for companies and government departments. This reduces regulatory capture and signals that nuclear safety is not merely advisory, but legally enforceable. Finally, the bill establishes specialized mechanisms for dispute resolution and compensation through Atomic Energy Redressal Advisory Council, an appellate tribunal, and a Nuclear Damage Claims Commission by excluding ordinary civil courts from jurisdiction in these matters. This is a major issue because people felt that they would be involved in long litigation. It aims to ensure technical expertise, fast education, and consistency in decisions. For affected communities, this offers a cleaner, more accessible path to compensation. In summary, Honourable Speaker, sir, this bill benefits the country by positioning or repositioning nuclear energy as the cornerstones of India's energy transition, industrial competitiveness, and technological self-reliance, while simultaneously strengthening safety, liability, and regulatory oversight. Its clause-by-clause design reflects an attempt to reconcile expansion with caution, investment with sovereignty, and innovation with public safety. As a legislative framework, it is factual, comprehensive, and aligned with both India's international commitments and its domestic development priorities. अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं इस कमेटी को और उन लोगों को साधुवाद देना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने इस बिल को निर्धारित किया है, क्योंकि इसमें प्रचुर मात्रा में मैं समझता हूं विशेषज्ञों का अनुपात है. इसमें मैं समझता हूं बहुत ऐसे लोगों से राय ली गई है जो इसमें विशेषज्ञ हैं, और इसके लिए मैं सरकार को भी धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं. और उसी के साथ साथ मैं पूरे सदन को बोलना चाहता हूं कि इस विधेयक से मैं समझता हूं जन कल्याण की भावना से हर व्यक्ति को आसानी मिलेगी. इस विधेयक से मैं समझता हूं उस महिला को आसानी मिलेगी जो आज की तारीख में रेडियोलॉजिकल मायने में लखनऊ में पढ़ी है, उस छात्र को आसानी मिलेगी जो मेरे गांव में लाइब्रेरी में अपनी पढ़ाई कर रहा है जिसको 24 घंटे बिजली चाहिए, उस उद्योगपति को साधन मिलेगी जो आज की तारीख में डेटा सेंटर खड़ा करना चाहता है और उसको 24/7 इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं मिल रही है. मैं समझता हूं कई ऐसे लोगों को सावधानी मिलेगी जो आज की तारीख में उद्यम और भागीदारी से अपने राष्ट्र का निर्माण करना चाहते हैं. ये बिल मेरे हिसाब से हर व्यक्ति को कुछ न कुछ देगा. इसका मैं आशा करता हूं कि यहाँ के सभी सदस्य इसको आगे ले जाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध रहेंगे. अंत में अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारे ऋग्वेदों में यजुर्वेद एक ऐसा वेद है जो हमें सिखाता है कि किस प्रकार से किस यज्ञ को निर्धारित किया जाए, और मेरे हिसाब से हमारे विकसित भारत की यात्रा भी उसी प्रकार का एक कर्म यज्ञ है. और कर्म यज्ञ में वो शांति पथ का उद्बोधन बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होता है जो यजुर्वेद में है, और उसमें जो शांति पथ में कहा गया है उसको आपको मैं पढ़ के सुनाता हूं. ओम दैव शांति, अंतरिक्ष शांति, अंतरिक्ष शांति, औषधि शांति, वनस्पते शांति, विश्वदेव शांति, ब्रह्म शांति, सर्वम शांति, शांतिरेव शांति, ओम शांति शांति शांति. मैं समझता हूं कि इस विधेयक में जिस प्रकार से अपने देश को आगे ले जाने की अलख है, जिस प्रकार से विकसित भारत को आगे ले जाने की अलख है, उसमें शांति शब्द का प्रयोग ही एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण सिद्धांत है. मैं इस विधेयक को पूरी तरह समर्थन करके अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूं। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
धन्यवाद जी। माननीय श्री आदित्य यादव जी।
धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय। मैं आज इस महत्वपूर्ण शांति बिल 2025 पे अपनी पार्टी और अपने नेता आदरणीय अखिलेश यादव जी की तरफ से पुरजोर विरोध करने के लिए आज खड़ा हुआ हूँ। माननीय अध्यक्ष महोदय, जहां आज ये शांति बिल 2025 आप सभी के सामने न्यूक्लियर सेक्टर में 1962 के बाद सबसे बड़ा रिफॉर्म कहा जा रहा है, लेकिन असलियत ये है कि आज लोगों के, जनता के साथ जिस तरीके के उनकी सुरक्षा के साथ कॉम्प्रोमाइज तथा जिस तरीके से विदेशी कंपनियों को एक रेड कारपेट देने का काम ये सरकार कर रही है, और इन सबसे बड़ी बात जिस तरीके से भारतीय जनता पार्टी सरकार खुद अपने किए हुए बातों को और अपनी की गई बातों जो इस सदन में की गई थी उनसे यू टर्न लेने का काम कर रही है, विधेयक आज उन सभी बातों को दर्शाता है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं सीधे तौर पे जो इस बिल की सच्चाई, इस विधेयक की सच्चाई है उसके ऊपर चर्चा करूंगा। जहां 49% एफडीआई अलाउ किया जा रहा है, वहीं पे सीधे तौर पे अमेरिका की बड़ी कंपनियां जैसे वॉशिंगटन हाउस, फ्रेंच कंपनी अरेवा, इन सभी कंपनियों को देश में लाने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है। मैं सरकार से पूछना चाहता हूं कि आज अगर हम लोग 49% से 100% तक का एफडीआई अलाउ कर रहे हैं, तो प्रधानमंत्री जी द्वारा जो मेक इन इंडिया की बात की जाती थी, उस बात का क्या हुआ? आज इतने बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स के अंदर अगर हम लोगों को लेनी है तो हम लोग कुशल उन लोगों से सुझाव ले सकते हैं, लेकिन जिस तरीके से मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और सप्लायर्स को इस विधेयक में पूरी तरीके से कैप देने की बात की जा रही है, इसका भी मैं विरोध करता हूं। अध्यक्ष महोदय, सप्लाई और लायबिलिटी कैप, ऑपरेशन इंश्योरेंस कवरेज, जहां 1500 करोड़ का पर इंसिडेंट दिया जा रहा है, लेकिन अगर आप फुकुशिमा दाकाशिनी का त्रासदी देखें तो जापान में जो त्रासदी हुई थी उस समय पे लगभग $1 ट्रिलियन यानी कि 82 लाख करोड़ रुपए का खर्चा सरकार को देना पड़ा था इतनी बड़ी त्रासदी से निपटने के लिए। वहीं पे सरकार इस समय पे 1500 करोड़ रुपए या उतने तक की अगर लायबिलिटी को कैप करने का काम कर रही है, कहीं ना कहीं सप्लायर्स को बचाने की बात सीधे तौर पर की जाती है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, वहीं पे आपने देखा होगा, आपको याद होगा चेरनोबिल का जहां पे न्यूक्लियर डिजास्टर हुआ था, उसको क्लीन अप करने के लिए जहां $700 बिलियन का लॉस सरकार को झेलना पड़ा था, उस सबसे बड़ा मैं मानता हूं आज जिस चीज को हम आप सब झेल रहे हैं, पर्यावरण का नुकसान। न्यूक्लियर डिजास्टर के अंदर एक सबसे बड़ी चीज जो दशकों तक हमने देखी है, जिसका नुकसान हम लोगों ने देखा है, ह्यूमंस को, लोगों को झेलना पड़ता है, वो है डिजास्टर के बाद एनवायरनमेंट का नुकसान, जानवरों का जो होता है उनको नुकसान, और किस तरीके से आने वाले समय पे आपने देखा है कि समुद्रों के अंदर भी जो न्यूक्लियर वेस्ट होता है उसको छोड़ के जो समुद्र के जनजीवन होता है उसको भी सीधे तौर पे नुकसान पहुंचाया जाता है। वहीं जब मैं बात करता हूं कि सरकार का टारगेट है 2047 तक 100 गीगावाट कैपेसिटी करना, अभी तक जहां ये 8 गीगावाट तक पहुंचे हैं, वहीं सीधे तौर पे दिखता है कि इसको इन्हें 12 गुना बढ़ाना पड़ेगा। और जब हम 12 गुना बनाने की बात करते हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं सीधे तरीके से सेफ्टी के साथ कॉम्प्रोमाइज होने का भी एक सवाल उठता है। इसको लेकर के हम लोगों ने क्या किया है, इसके ऊपर भी मंत्री जी बताने का कष्ट करें। अब जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी के डबल स्टैंडर्ड। अध्यक्ष महोदय, जब विपक्ष में थे तब ये कहते थे कि ये लोग अब क्या ट्रंप को सीधे तौर पे फायदा देने के लिए ऐसा बिल लेके आ रहे हैं। मैं इसीलिए ऐसा कह रहा हूं क्योंकि पूर्व में अध्यक्ष महोदय हमने देखा है कि अमेरिका की तरफ से जो टैरिफ हम लोगों के ऊपर लगाया गया, उसके बाद जिस तरीके का दबाव भारत सरकार के ऊपर बनाया गया, क्या कहीं अंदरूनी तौर पे भारत सरकार ये तो नहीं सोच रही कि ये रेड कारपेट देकर कंपनियों को, अमेरिकी कंपनियों और फ्रेंच कंपनियों को फायदा देकर जिस तरीके का टैरिफ का दबाव ट्रंप बना रहे हैं, उसको कहीं ना कहीं खत्म करने का प्रयास ये सरकार भी अंदरूनी तौर पे कर रही है, ऐसा हम लोगों को दिखाई देता है। साथ ही में मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि 2010 में डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार में जब सिविल लायबिलिटी ऑफ न्यूक्लियर डिमांड एक्ट लेकर आए थे, तो इसमें बीजेपी ने जमकर विरोध किया था। स्वर्गीय अरुण जेटली जी जो उस समय में राज्यसभा के ऑपोजिशन के लीडर थे, उन्होंने 30 अगस्त 2010 में पार्लियामेंट में यह कहा था कि ऑपरेटर का राइट ऑफ रिसोर्स किसी रिटन एग्रीमेंट पर डिपेंड नहीं हो सकता है। अगर इक्विपमेंट में पेटेंट या लेटेंट डिफेक्ट हो तो सप्लायर की लायबिलिटी होनी चाहिए। इसमें आपको क्लॉज 17B की यूटिलिटी को सप्लायर डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं कर सकता। तो क्या जो उस समय पे 2010 में जेटली जी ने बात कही थी, आप उसको भूल गए? अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं जल्दी खत्म करना चाहता हूं। बहुत सारे विषय हैं। मैंने आपको कहा कि हम लोग बहुत कम विषय पे चर्चा कर रहे हैं। मेरे साथ कई सारे मेरे सांसद हैं जो इस मुद्दे के ऊपर विस्तृत चर्चा करना चाहते हैं। कई सारे पॉइंट्स हैं जिनको हम लोग नहीं छू पा रहे हैं। पब्लिक सेफ्टी की बात है, फॉरेन कंपनीज की इंटरेस्ट की बात है। वहीं पे आप देखा, जब मैंने आपको बताया कि किस तरीके की हिपोक्रेसी हो रही है कि आज जहां पे महोदय इस बिल की एटॉमिक एनर्जी एक्ट 1962 की सिविल लाइबिलिटी फॉर न्यूक्लियर डैमेज एक्ट 2010 दोनों को अपोज करता है, वहीं पे 63 इयर्स बाद, 63 साल बाद पुराना कानून जिसमें पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट को सबसे ऊपर रखा गया था, आज उसको खत्म क्यों किया जा रहा है? अध्यक्ष महोदय, मेरा आपसे अनुरोध होगा कि इसमें पूरे तरीके से प्राइवेट सेक्टर को ही लेकर आने का प्रयास कर रही है। आज सरकार की स्थिति अध्यक्ष महोदय ये है, पूरे तौर पे अपने लब्बो-लुबाब इस बिल को लाने का सरकार का ये है कि जिस फाइनेंशियल परिस्थितियों में आज ये सरकार फंसी हुई है, जहां डॉलर 90 से ज्यादा निकलता चला जा रहा है, इनके कंट्रोल से बाहर हो चुका है, ऐसे में जब इनके पास इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है, जब कोई भी कंपनी नहीं आना चाहती है, वहां ये डॉलर के लिए और बाहर की कंपनियों को अपने देश में लाके या इन्वेस्टमेंट और अपना जो डेट है उसको क्लियर करने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। इसीलिए हम सभी समाजवादी लोग इस बिल का विरोध करते हैं और आने वाले समय में पुरजोर तरीके से विरोध करते रहेंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय समाजवाद।
प्रोफेसर स्वागत राय जी, यस सर।
बहुत अच्छा बोला सर। I shall be very brief. I've got only 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes I oppose the Shanti bill. Sir, I oppose this because this bill opens up the nuclear power sector to private industry, both domestic and foreign. And also, their plan is to have Taj. 4 companies are vying for this: Tata, Adani, Ambani and Jindal. They want to have a share in the nuclear pie. That's why it has been mentioned by Manish before. I oppose this bill. So the bill comes after the country had 75 years.
Yes, sir. 1 second, sir.
Houses which are being named by the honourable member, direct or indirect mention in the entire text of the bill. So please, this should be removed from the record.
You send it
Earlier also the member mentioned, so attaching motives without grounds will send a wrong message and bring the house into disrepute.
Sir, I have not named anybody. I have named some titles: Taj, Tata,
Honourable member has just now
Adani
named 3
and
houses
Jindal.
and everybody
Anyway,
has heard it.
Sir, that is not all my point.
Professor Saugat
Other
Raj ji, 1 second.
members
1 second,
will speak on
Professor
this.
Saugat Raj ji.
All
1
I
second.
want to say, why I am...
I heard Honorable Minister raising this point 2 times during this discussion. Kindly refrain from taking any names directly, because you don't have any basis to raise any names. So we will look into the record later, but please do not take any names. Rule doesn't permit, sir. The rule doesn't permit, you know that. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Sir, the government is planning to have 100 gigawatts by 2047 through the nuclear route. It plans to have 22,000 megawatt by 2032. It says that it will reduce dependence on fossil fuels. But we must also remember that nuclear energy is a risky proposition, You know about the Chernobyl incident in Belarus, 3 Mile Island in the United States, and Fukushima in Japan. You are saying that if accident takes place, maximum liability will be 300 million. I say that this should be increased to 500 million. Why? It should be such a small cap. Liability should be full. Sir, we have shortage both of nuclear raw materials. As you know, all these reactors are fission reactors, splitting the atom. We haven't developed the technology to have fusion reactors, where you combine two atoms into one. So, these fission reactors have this problem, chance of accident. One should be careful about that. Sir, they say that this is to achieve low carbonization, zero carbon emission by 2070. But if in the process this accident takes place, the whole purpose will be defeated. Sir, new boards have been taken up. Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, Atomic Energy Redressal Advisory Council, Nuclear Damage Claims Commission. It's all right to have such regulatory bodies. But basically, if you bring in the private sector and foreign investment, there will be a basic problem in the whole nuclear. We don't have enough nuclear raw material. We have some uranium mines in this country, but you know, sir, uranium has to be put into a centrifuge so that it becomes plutonium. And latest nuclear. Yes? Conclude kar do? No. Sir, former chief minister.
No, sorry, you came up to plutonium, you want to go to thorium, please go ahead. Yeah.
It has to be put in a centrifuge. We are short of nuclear fuel. Now you are allowing import of nuclear fuel, import of equipment, and you are also allowing private parties to build nuclear reactors. So the whole thing should be considered afresh. The minister should send this bill to without hurrying. He should not make haste or hurry. He should send it to a select committee. Let us consider all these aspects and then we can decide. That's why, sir, I oppose this bill and propose it be referred to a select committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mananiya Shri Arun Nehru ji.
Physics ka professor.
Thank you, Speaker, sir. And thanks for the opportunity to present my views on the sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, which the short form is Shanti. And I think this is an oxymoron, sir. Nuclear energy has nothing to do with Shanti. You know, the powers that you deal with are extremely dangerous. So I think this is an oxymoron. Sir, the first thing that I want to start with is motivation, sir. Now, irrespective of being from wherever politics we are, the motivation is simple, is very different for private enterprise, and it's completely different for public enterprise, sir. Now, the private sector is answerable to the shareholders, sir. Every year, the private sector's pursuit is the pursuit of profit through economy and through business. It's always profit at the end of the day. So the bottom line matters for the private sector, irrespective of in any other business, sir. We have seen it in warfare scenarios. We have seen it in where humans have gone to inhuman ways to seek profit. So private enterprise in this particular scenario, it's still pursuit of profit, where public sector has a different motivation, sir. Public sector, it's state obligation. It's the obligation of the state. It's the prestige of the state to preserve and nurture and to showcase to the world that we're actually better off. And we have. In fact, in the last so many years, the atomic establishment in the country has been one of the finest in the country, and we have showcased ourselves to be a safe, responsible nuclear power. And now, one of the things is it's the commitment of the sovereign. So we take so much care, irrespective of the politics, to ensure that our image through the nuclear deterrence is actually shown to be a world, to be a responsible power. Now, I will also want to tabulate the difference between private enterprise and public enterprise across various industries, sir, and the outcomes that has happened because of a policy change allowing private enterprise to come in. I'm not against private enterprise, sir, but I want to point out to House in certain sensitive segments, where the pursuit of profit has actually caused harm rather than, productivity in this country. You take energy, sir. Now, energy, there are a number of incidences where tragedies have happened. But let me stick to economics of the energy now. In the last 10 years, the cost of electricity that is being consumed by the consumers has actually increased by 25%, sir. When there's more private enterprise commissioning plants, which is a good thing, but the outcome of it is you have cost increase by 25%. On the public enterprise, we have superb enterprises like the NTPC, CIL, and GAIL, thanks to the stalwarts of liberalization who actually gave these products to us. Second, finance. In the industry of finance, private sector has come up with innovation in finance in a number of ways. There have been so many good things, but I also want to point out that corporate write-offs in the last 10 years is increased by so many times, sir. I'm not trying to say that it is wrong, it's right, but an outcome of a policy which is allowing private players to pursue profit is actually corporate write-offs, where on the other side, we have companies, we have institutions, I would say institutions, public institutions, not even companies, like SBI and LSE, pursuing the public thing. The last thing that I want to, two more things, sir, is food and agriculture. You see, one of the outcomes of the private enterprise coming in is the shortage of fertilizer. I mean, it is because of so many other reasons, but one of the reasons is because the private has a very large share of fertilizer production in this country, and that is one of the consequences of having a shortfall in the last season of shortage of fertilizer. On the other hand, we have TN's horticulture mission, which is actually have policies to enable the largest per capita production of vegetables in the country, sir. The last point we have, in this case itself, nuclear, you have Fukushima and you had Chernobyl happen, which again Fukushima is again a private enterprise, sir. Japan, a country with much higher technical capabilities because of their history, has actually shut nuclear production for a long period of time. So I want the House to note that even with technical expertise, this has to handle with utmost caution. And now we have on the other side, public enterprise of Kalpakkam, sir. Kalpakkam Nuclear Energy, where fast breeder reactors technology have been pursued, and it's still safe, and no incidences have been reported in the Kalpakkam, sir. Now, a very important point is the risk profile, right? Whenever our country has, is open, it's liberal, it's trading in dollars, we're exporting, we're importing, one of the things is that this bill opens up litigation to international forums. Previously, it was supposed to be within the jurisdiction of this country, and our courts had jurisdiction over nuclear incidences. What I want to point out here is this, sir, that it will have an implication when our private enterprise or when a country borrows in dollars, because our risk profile is also tied up to any of the litigation that may come up in the future, and because litigation and insurance is about future products, it's about a future risk. So the risk profile of our country, because of it being open up to international forums, is going to increase the cost of borrowing in international markets, and hence our exports are going to be expensive. I want the House to note that also, sir. Now, the next point that I want to note out is liability. The liability regime in this particular bill is actually pro-operator. The government has reasons to make it pro-operator because they want to say that, we want better technologies to come, we want better operators to come, we want large players to come. Yes, we all agree. But there are certain things which actually you should note, where the AERB, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, is given a statutory backing, which is long due, which is important. But there are certain provisions which a government can instruct ARB to. So the autonomous nature of ARB on a statutory role is actually short-circuited in this particular bill, sir. I would want the attention to happen. Now, there are strict time limits on claims. Anywhere in the country, sir, anywhere in the world also, whenever nuclear energy is present, there's always claims and counterclaims because of the nature of technology involved and its sensitivity. Now here, the government has come up with a particular section that says that any of the claims must be pursued through the claims commissioners. You can't approach the court system or the judiciary here. Again, what the government intends to do is basically say, look, we have given you a separate infrastructure so as to go to claims. But we know the history of claims, sir, and the jurisprudence in the country also. So there is enormous power, from the government to the operator to actually execute the project in spite of the claims. So there is a need for the government to clarify that there can actually be fair to the claimants if there is any. Now, that is under clause 70, sir, where there is no, clause 70 says there is no individual settlement. Individually, you can't go and say, look, I have a claim. it will all come from a consolidated fund. So they have to group all the victims or claimants together and have, the claims commissioner decides a certain amount, and it has to be divided by the largest denominator, which is the number of people there, sir. So an individual claim has no merit here. So what the bill does is actually remove the individual rights, which you and I know, sir, it is enshrined in the constitution of the country, and it's sacred to all of us now. Now, clause 54 has fixed tariffs. The government wants to give clarity to the operator, I presume, because that is why they brought in clause 37. But it has a fixed rate, sir. It's not market linked. And any fixed rate by a public institution like the government, sir, it is actually prone to misuse, because fixing of a rate, has completely, in the gray area. It is not market linked. It's not determinable. And there are so many factors which are in the gray area. So the government must come up with a clear plan actually fixing the price, sir. Now, the most important point, which my colleagues have already pointed out, is there is a staggered limit on the claims that can happen. The largest or the highest cap is 3,000 crores, sir. 3,000 crores. I will tell you why that 3,000 crores is minuscule compared to the project size, which I will explain in the next section, which is the economics. Now, members would note that anywhere in the world, nuclear fuel or the nuclear energy is only stopgap, sir. I mean, the Honorable Minister, when he started, he said that the wind energy and the solar energy had a lot of fluctuations because of the nature of the, the technology involved and the grid system. And he said nuclear energy will be a stopgap measure. So I would thank the minister actually reminding the House that nuclear energy is a stopgap. And I will explain the mechanics or the economics to understand why stopgap and the economy doesn't match. Now, the cost of nuclear versus different energies, sir. Any project has tangible cost and intangible cost. Tangible cost is something that you can measure. Intangible costs are those costs which is especially environmental factors, which comes through environmental clearance and the green tribunals that have been set up. Now, cost of production, capital expenditure. When you want to establish a nuclear power station or a nuclear project, cost per megawatt is 30 crores, sir. 30 crores per megawatt. Coal is approximately 12 crores, sir. You can still do it lower, but 12 crores is, taking the latest technology in place, making sure clean fuel is available. So it's clean energy is available. So it's 12 crores, sir. Solar is 4.5 crore per megawatt. So this is the current, even in Indian conditions, because, foreigners, it's still very expensive because of the statutory norms and safety norms. Now, if you take the levelized cost of electricity, putting all the numbers together, I'm not great at mathematics, sir, but if you ask me, give me one number, what is the cost of per unit of electricity? Now, the localized cost of electricity, LCOE is called, is rupees 5 per megawatt when it comes to a nuclear station above 100 megawatts, sir. You need that minimum scale because it doesn't come up with the investment if it's 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt. Now, for coal, it's 5.5 today in India's term. And for solar, it's 3 megawatt. Now, coming back to the stopgap, what the Honorable Minister had pointed out, sir. Now, this project of 30 crore per megawatt, a stopgap, is like a UPS in your home, right? You would spend 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs for your home, but the UPS will be less than 50,000 for the initiative that it provides, which is a stopgap, which is a ensure that there is uninterrupted power supply, but on a larger scale through nuclear source. Now, when you take this stopgap measure, the cost of each of the project, that to link to the dollar, because all of your technologies and the fuel come from dollar, not rupees, you are actually exporting or exposing the risk of the country to multitude of factors other than just cost of production, sir, which is actually intangible. We still don't know the intangible cost because advanced powers, where they have a matured nuclear industry, still haven't figured out the intangible cost, and you still have, so many litigations in the, Western hemisphere on nuclear energy. Now, because of this exposure to the dollar, sir, you have to tap the international markets. The domestic markets cannot fund the size and scope of this particular project, and suppliers of technology will also want a stopgap because they will tap the dollar. Now, 1% increase in the interest rate, if from the borrower, impacts the cost of electricity production by 0.40 paise per kilowatt hour, sir. And you can multiply it by the thousands of the megawatt the government wants to bring in, it will actually make the project not feasible, sir. A 10% increase, which is about 5 rupees, and a 40 paise increase is a 10% increase, sir. Would you think the consumers or the government or the private industry, I don't think it's going to be liable, sir. The last point that I want to explain to the members of the House is safety. Now, the power of plutonium-2, there are a number of fuels, sir, but an isotope, which is a variation of the nuclear fuel, plutonium-239, which is actually used by India in the fast breeder reactors in the country, we have got very good expertise, has been the fuel, sir. Now, safety-wise, a lot of members don't know that there's something called the half-life period of this material, sir. And half-life period is the amount of time required for the energy to be reduced into half. So if you produce 1 kilowatt, if 1 gram of fuel produces 1 megawatt of power, that 1 gram to reduce to 500 kilowatts, sir, takes 24,100 years, sir. 24,000 years, sir. We are not even, forget 5 years, 10 years, 24,000 years, sir. One small incident that on this, of course, the government is pursuing on the safety also. One small error is an error of 24,000 years, sir. It is epochs. So also, I'm finishing, sir. Last point, the geological storage of spent fuel in this country. We have still got geological storage, sir. Geological storage is the storage where you keep this fuel. Spent fuel, which can't be given outside, is approximately 10,000 years, sir. Forget about the policy continuity on 50 years, 100 years. 10,000 years, are you going to have a policy continuity? There are a number of risks, sir. I'm finishing last point, sir. The number of risks in this bill where the government's intention is to bring up innovation, bring up energy production. I think the government is at risk in terms of safety, in terms of statutory routes, and in terms of getting our engineers to actually come up to date. So I request the government to take note that there is a lot of risks which is opening our country into foreign, risks. So I request the government to revisit or revise to JPC. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Honorable Member, Shri Alok Kumar Sumanji.
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय, मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि आपने लेजिस्लेटिव बिजनेस के इस महत्वपूर्ण विधेयक द सस्टेनेबल हार्नेसिंग एंड एडवांसमेंट ऑफ न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी फॉर ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग इंडिया बिल 2025 पर बोलने का मौका दिया। यह बिल देश के परमाणु ऊर्जा को नियंत्रित और सस्टेनेबल उपयोग की दिशा में एक महत्वपूर्ण प्रगति की पहल है। इस विधेयक का मुख्य उद्देश्य एटॉमिक एनर्जी एक्ट 1962 और सिविल लायबिलिटी ऑफ न्यूक्लियर डैमेज एक्ट 2010 को रिपील करना है। इससे देश की वर्तमान और भविष्य की ऊर्जा की आवश्यकताओं को सस्टेनेबल रूप से पूरा किया जा सकेगा। महोदय, वर्तमान विधेयक का अनुमोदन होने से परमाणु ईंधन में आत्मनिर्भरता और परमाणु ऊर्जा को संचालित करने में सहायता मिलेगी। हम यह कह सकते हैं कि सरकार स्वच्छ ऊर्जा सुरक्षा और भविष्य में आने वाली ऊर्जा आवश्यकताओं को पूरा कर सकेगी। 24 घंटे विश्वसनीय विद्युत आपूर्ति प्रदान करने के लिए परमाणु ऊर्जा से बहुत सहायता मिलेगी। महोदय, अगर हम विश्व की सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स की बात करें तो भारत एनर्जी सेक्टर में सस्टेनेबिलिटी स्थापित किया है और वर्ष 2070 तक डिकार्बोनाइजेशन ऑफ इकोनॉमी के लिए देश की रूपरेखा तैयार किया गया है। 2047 तक 100 गीगावाट परमाणु ऊर्जा क्षमता प्राप्त करने के लिए लक्ष्य रखा गया है, जो वर्तमान में 7.5 गीगावाट है। इससे स्वदेशी परमाणु संसाधनों का पूर्ण उपयोग होगा तथा सार्वजनिक और निजी क्षेत्रों की सक्रिय भागीदारी सुनिश्चित होगी। मेरा विश्वास है कि हम दूसरे देशों को भी परमाणु ऊर्जा के सही उपयोग के लिए सहायता कर सकते हैं। महोदय, 2047 तक बिजली की जरूरतों में 4 से 5 गुना की वृद्धि का अनुमान है। हालांकि नवीनीकरणीय ऊर्जा स्रोतों का विस्तार हो रहा है, लेकिन वे अकेले बेस लोड डिमांड पूरा नहीं कर सकते। अतः यह आवश्यक है कि परमाणु ऊर्जा को मुख्य साधन बनाया जाए। इसलिए 100 गीगावाट एटॉमिक एनर्जी के लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने के लिए हमें प्रति वर्ष 4 गीगावाट उत्पादन करना होगा। महोदय, मैं यह बताना चाहूँगा कि NPCIL अपनी सहायक कंपनियों के साथ मिलकर घरेलू एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय साझेदारी का लगभग 100 गीगावाट का लक्ष्य को लगभग आधा हिस्सा हासिल करने का लक्ष्य रखती है। NTPC के संयुक्त उद्यमी अश्विनी माही बसवाड़ा में 700 क्षमता वाले 4 PHWR के निर्माण का बीड़ा उठाया है। इन सभी गतिविधियों में इस विधेयक से सहायता मिलेगी। महोदय, जैसा कि हम सभी जानते हैं, डॉक्टर होमी भाभा के द्वारा परमाणु ऊर्जा की शुरुआत की गई। कई आशंकाओं के कारण देश के परमाणु विस्तार में प्रतिबंध भी लगा, लेकिन मजबूत सरकार ने सारी चुनौतियों को सामना किया। महोदय, आज हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी और हमारे बिहार के माननीय मुख्यमंत्री श्री नीतीश कुमार जी के मजबूत नेतृत्व में सरकार परमाणु ऊर्जा क्षेत्र में अनेकों उपलब्धियां हासिल करने की दिशा में आगे बढ़ रही है। 2 दशकों में 10 नए न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर्स का काम प्रगति पर है, जिससे न्यूक्लियर पावर जनरेशन 10 गुना बढ़ जाएगा। महोदय, वर्तमान विधेयक के चैप्टर 2 में ग्रांट ऑफ लाइसेंस एंड सेफ्टी ऑथराइजेशन की बात की गई है। सेक्शन 3 के सब सेक्शन 1 to 5 में सेफ्टी आदि की बात की गई है। मेरा यह सुझाव है कि यह फ्यूल को सेफ्टी स्टोर करने के लिए राज्य सरकार की भी सहायता लेनी चाहिए। न्यूक्लियर फैसिलिटी के लिए अधिकतम वाटर यूज होगा, इसके लिए भी सस्टेनेबिलिटी को ध्यान में रखते हुए स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से ओब्लिगेटरी सलाह मशविरा किया जा सकता है। महोदय, इस चैप्टर 2 का सेक्शन 4 रेडियो एक्टिव सब्सटेंस की रेगुलेशन और रेडिएशन जनरेटिंग इक्विपमेंट की भी बात करता है। इसमें कहा गया है कि सेफ्टी ऑथराइजेशन बोर्ड से लेनी है। इसमें मेरा अनुरोध है कि लाइसेंस इशू करने की प्रक्रिया उच्च कोटि की होनी चाहिए। रेडियोलॉजिकल इमरजेंसी पड़ने पर तत्काल केंद्र सरकार एवं राज्य सरकार से मदद मिलनी चाहिए। स्टोरेज वाली जगह सुरक्षित एवं हार्मलेस होनी चाहिए। महोदय, सेक्शन 6 में एप्लीकेशन ऑफ लाइसेंस और सेक्शन 7 में लाइसेंस ग्रांट और सुरक्षा की बात की गई है। इसमें मेरा यह कहना है कि रेडियो एक्टिव वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, जो कि एक महत्वपूर्ण पहलू है और हेल्थ से डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड है, इसके मैनेजमेंट पर विशेष ध्यान का प्रस्ताव रखना जरूरी है। इसके मैनेजमेंट पर विशेष ध्यान का प्रस्ताव रखना जरूरी है। अतः मेरा यह मानना है कि इस विधेयक के पास होने से इन सभी समस्याओं का समाधान होगा। महोदय, यूनाइटेड नेशंस के सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स में भारत ने काफ़ी हद तक उद्देश्य को हासिल कर लिए हैं। इसके अनुसार एनर्जी सेक्टर में अपने देश को 2070 तक नेट जीरो कार्बन इमिशन के लक्ष्य को हासिल करना है। वर्तमान विधेयक इंटरनेशनल एटॉमिक एनर्जी एजेंसी के मानकों को भी अनुरूपता को सुनिश्चित करेगा। बजट 2025-26 में भी परमाणु मिशन की शुरुआत की गई, जिसके लिए 20,000 करोड़ रुपए निर्धारित किए गए, ताकि वर्ष 2033 तक कम से कम 5 स्वदेशी स्मॉल मॉड्यूलर रिएक्टर विकसित की जा सके। महोदय, वर्तमान विधेयक का चैप्टर 1 में ड्यूटीज और लायबिलिटी की बात कही गई है। इस चैप्टर के सेक्शन 10 में सेफ्टी, सिक्योरिटी और सेफगार्ड्स के लिए प्राइम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फैक्ट्री मालिक, एम्प्लॉयर और माइंस के मालिक आदि लोगों की होगी। इसमें मेरा यह कहना है कि जो भी रिपोर्ट्स या रिटर्न्स केंद्र सरकार की जानकारी के लिए भेजी जाए, उस पर एक्सपर्ट लोगों से ही विचार विमर्श किया जाना चाहिए। महोदय, सेक्शन 11 में ऑपरेटर ऑफ न्यूक्लियर इंस्टॉलेशन करने वाले की जिम्मेदारी होगी। यदि कोई भी न्यूक्लियर इंसिडेंट्स न्यूक्लियर डैमेज होती है, इसलिए हमें यह भी ध्यान रखना होगा कि न्यूक्लियर इंसिडेंट्स की किसी भी हालत में न्यूक्लियर डैमेज न हो। वर्तमान विधेयक के सेक्शन 13 में मैक्सिमम अमाउंट ऑफ लायबिलिटीज 300 मिलियन रखी गई है। महोदय, मेरा यह सुझाव होगा कि इसको बढ़ाकर 4 से 5 मिलियन किया जा सकता है, तो बुरे वक्त में यह सहायता काफ़ी उचित साबित होगा। महोदय, इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं इस बिल का समर्थन करते हुए अपनी बात को समाप्त करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
माननीय सदस्य श्री कृष्णा प्रसाद तेनेती जी।
Honorable Chairman, sir, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity on speaking such a wonderful and very, very important and watershed bill for this year 2025. Dear sir, I rise today on behalf of my party and our honorable leader, Honorable Chief Minister Sri Nara Chandrababu Naidu ji, to express the support for the sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, in short, Shanti Bill 2025. The very name, sir, of this bill reflects our nation's resolve to harness nuclear energy responsibly and strategically. for national development and long-term sustainability in line with the aim of an Atmanirbhar Vikasit Bharat by 2047. Honorable Speaker, sir, our country's journey in atomic energy is deeply rooted in scientific temperament and national foresight. Dr. Homi J. Bhabha, the architect of India's nuclear program, viewed atomic energy as a driver of development and self-reliance. His vision was complemented by the defense developments under Shri Babu Jagjivan Ramji, whose political resolve as defense minister showcased India's nuclear capabilities on the international stage with Smiling Buddha in 1974, thereby aligning scientific advancement with national security and sovereignty. Honorable Chairperson, sir, Dr. Homi J. Babaji has envisioned Atmanirbhar Bharat on 3 stages. We started by talking about uranium, and from uranium, after 2 stages to thorium, because I want the House to understand, India has 25% of the global reserves of thorium in our country. Had it not been for the NDA government and the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, we couldn't have come to the 3rd stage. We paused for several years, nearly 50 years in between. We didn't go forward. So now we have come after the 2nd stage, from 2015 amendments which sped up development in nuclear energy to the historic entry into phase 2 of India's nuclear plan in 2024, wherein our Prime Minister witnessed the commencement of core loading in your own stage in India's first indigenous fast breeder reactor at Kalpakam. I will come to you, sir. I will come to you. Please recollect the core loading which happened in your own stage in the India's first indigenous fast breeder reactor at Kalpakam in Tamil Nadu. Is it a fact or not? Honorable Chairperson, sir, globally speaking, where are we? Countries like United States of America, France, Slovakia, European Union countries, and Japan generate and consume a substantial share of their electricity from nuclear power, exceeding 50% of total electricity generation. Whereas in India, we are only at 3%. We have a long way to go. We should develop an ecosystem. We are on that path. We are on the way thanks to the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. And this bill facilitates greater investment, innovation, and efficiency while maintaining sovereign control. I repeat, this bill facilitates greater investment, innovation, and efficiency while maintaining sovereign control. It enhances India's ability to attract long-term foreign investment in nuclear infrastructure, reactor components, and allied technologies. This roadmap will help us to scale up to 100 gigawatts by 2047. And again, I want the House to recall, today we are only at 8 gigawatts as compared to 98.7 gigawatts of America already. Now, there was a question raised, my friend has gone out, Mr. Manish Tiwari ji, about the foreign investment or the private sector role, and also about the accountability with respect to the supplier versus operator. Let me explain to you, to the House and to the people of my country, my people in my constituency, through you, sir. If you look at in America, the private sector companies, Constellation Energy, their nuclear capacity is 10.7 gigawatts in the private sector. Duke Energy, 10.7 gigawatts, whereas my country today is still at 8 gigawatts. Vistra Corporation, 6.4 gigawatts in USA. Tennessee Valley Sea Authority, 8.3 gigawatts. Extra Energy is 6.2 gigawatts. I can go on. I have a very long list of private sector, and this is the role that private sector companies, while following all security, while following the security protocols in America, are producing, each company is producing as much as my entire country is producing. Sir, should not my country grow? Should not my country produce more? And we are on that path. We should do that. And, sir, when we are marching ahead, there are several people who will comment, but we should not look at them. We should march ahead. Sir, Honorable Chairperson, sir, nuclear energy offers three decisive advantages to us. First, it provides reliable baseload power for more than 60 years. Second, it contributes significantly to carbon reduction. Third, a robust nuclear ecosystem catalyzes high-end manufacturing, research, and skilled employment. I would like to emphasize on this word, skilled employment. I'll come to it again, sir. Honorable Chairperson, sir, I wholeheartedly welcome and support the emphasis this bill places on research, development, and innovation, especially in regards to using nuclear energy for research into next-generation technologies focused on healthcare and agriculture. Clause 9 of the bill promotes research, development, design, and innovation in matters related to nuclear energy and radiation for peaceful purposes, while Clause 38 allows for patents in for the same. This is in line with the government support for more than 15,000 crores for research, development, and innovation, further spurring the growth of scientific temper and research in our country. Finally, sir, with respect to the liability and accountability, my observation is, all of us are here can recall, the then Congress government of the 1980s, under incompetence in handling the Bhopal gas disaster, the world's worst industrial disaster, which led to generations of thousands of families suffering while those responsible for the disaster were allowed to fly out of the country. Exactly from this point of view, today we are now talking about this great bill where the entire onus is on the operator. No operator can run away from this country, and that is, he has to literally take care of all this. So therefore, right from the day one, from the day of supplies itself, the operator will have to be very, very careful, not only from installation of the plant, but also to the operation and the process of the entire process of generating power. Finally, sir, my final suggestion is, I would like to make a request to you, sir, through the Honorable Minister and to the government. We should also consider launching skill development initiatives and infrastructure to train our youth and give them the proper tools to benefit from us opening our doors of nuclear energy to the international markets. Sir, you may recall when the IT bubble came into our country in 1990s, because we have trained our youth much in advance. We're also now talking about cloud. Because we are training our youth much in advance, not only we are taking care of the requirements in our country, but we are also sending our youth all over the world, all over the globe, to take care of this industry, sir. So therefore, my request is, while BARC and NPCIL operate training schools, fellowships, and retraining schemes for engineers, scientists, and technicians, we must boost their efforts by upgrading and expanding the existing skill development programs of public infrastructure. Our youth should be trained to contribute globally in this industry also. In this spirit, sir, I would like to propose establishing a center of excellence in nuclear energy research and skilling in my home state, Andhra Pradesh, and new training programs and skill centers across our country, especially in my constituency, Bapatla, sir. Finally, in conclusion, sir, Dr. J. Babaji once famously said, I believe in excellence. It is not enough to be good. We must be the best. Our youth should be the best. Inspired by this spirit and encouraged by our NDA government's strong track record under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji over the last decade, I stand in support of this bill and our vision for Atmanirbhar Vikasit Bharat, and Swarnandhra Pradesh. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, honorable member. माननीय सदस्य श्रीमती सुप्रिया सुले जी.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity to speak on the sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy of transforming India bill, sir. Sir, I would like to quote Dr. Homi Babaji. No power is costlier than no power. So I appreciate the efforts of the Honorable Minister to bring in this bill today, because I think we all need to evolve with time, change with time, policies have to change with time. But I'm not sure whether the approach of this bill is what we expected from this government. Well, like my learned friend Manish Tiwari ji said, I would like today, when we are talking about nuclear energy, the forefathers who have really contributed in the last 7-8 decades of India's growth story, starting from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru ji, who actually sowed the seed of this new India that we all live in today. Dr. Homi Bhabha, Vikram Sarabhai, Dr. Manmohan Singh ji, and I wish my learned friend Krishna Teni ji, in his speech, he talked about the thorium changes that he wants. Yes, this government has contributed, but there are thousands and thousands of scientists, and I would like to put it on record, it was Dr. Anil Kakodkar who actually thought of moving from uranium to thorium. He is one of the tallest leaders as a scientist in India who has first thought of this idea, and now the government is taking it forward. I appreciate the efforts, but I think we must put it on record that yes, the government does it, but the real man behind this entire technology change is Dr. Anil Kakodkar. Sir, and now something else that India should be very proud of, and I'd like to put it on record, that recently in October, Professor Sunil Gupta was elected the President of International Union of Pure and Applied Physics during the 33rd Assembly held in China for a 3-year term, where this was the only job in the last 70 years which Dr. Homi Bhabha got it, and this is the first time that we should all be proud that Professor Sunil Gupta, a proud Indian today, leads the global change in this nuclear power. So it's something very big for India, I think. In the Atomic Energy Act 1962 and the Civil Liability Nuclear Damage Act 2020, the amendment that has been proposed by this government. So I want to ask 2 questions to the Honourable Minister, since he's here, and my learned friend Shashank ji is also here, who is very, very good technically. I would like to seek 2 clarifications from him about this bill. In his speech, he said that he doesn't want monopolies. So I like that thought, that there should be no monopoly. But I would with full humility say, who is this monopoly you're talking about? It's the nuclear power, the NPCLI, which is the Nuclear Power Corporation of India, who had a monopoly, which is one of our PSUs, which has always been in profit. You want Indigo to have a monopoly and hold this country for ransom, but for a PSU like Nuclear Corporation of India, there is no sympathy in this government. The government must clarify when your lead speaker says that, oh, we don't want monopolies. So when it's private, I'm not against privatization at all. Let me put it on the record. We are a very modern party. Mr. Pawar has always talked about liberalization. So let me put it on record, but please do not hold up PSUs who have built this nation and say they are monopolies. They are not the monopolies. It's the oligarchs who are the monopolies, not the government of India in the last 70 years who's been a monopoly. Another thing that he mentioned, which is very important, we need to put it on record, since you want private players to invest in this company, it's very important to clarify. He said R&D will remain with government. Will R&D only remain with government? That needs to be clarified, because it came from the Treasury bench that R&D will remain. So I seek a clarification from the Honourable Minister that it's very important that when a Treasury bench says that it will remain, it's very, very alarming to hear that. The other few issues which need to know that NPCIL, the Nuclear Power Corporation of India, has done outstanding work in this country. They started the fleet mode. We've had amazing reactors that this government has built over the last 7 decades. So every government has contributed to this growth story of nuclear power. But I would like to ask, what is the future that the government plans? Because Dr. Kakodkar proposed uranium to thorium. Mr. From Chandra Babuji's party, he was talking about uranium to thorium. I appreciate what you said, sir. But what is the plan this government has specifically made? Because this whole fuel price, why are we looking for this energy mix to bring the cost down? Now, we have a lot of thorium in this country. And one biggest asset that the thorium has is it is proliferation resistant. So if it is resistant, then are we going to promote it is a clarification, because all the people who you want to invest, we need to know, because he was talking about only American corporations when he was taking names. I mean, I'm a little worried after hearing that. I'm not against any country. Anybody who invests for the growth of India, we must, with changing times, the world has become flat, sir. So I would like to say that all those American corporations' names were quoted. So I'm little scared and worried that Professor Roy said maybe Indians are going to benefit, but after hearing an ally speech was only Americans benefited. I don't mind as long as Indians are benefited, but I hope India benefits. We don't mind foreign companies benefiting, but we must be very clear about that. So another case is, I would like to highlight, sir, 2-3 very small points. I would like to clarify, because Jaitapur is in my, you spoke about Tamil Nadu, the growth in, we should compliment the Tamil Nadu government for all the work they have done in nuclear with the government of India. But Jaitapur is a project which came in my state, sir. Jaitapur is a project which, Jaitapur nuclear power project, which still, you have also been in power, we've started it. But in the last 11 years, somehow this government has not been able to take it forward. So if you're looking at growth story, what about Jaitapur and how are you going to do it? So talking about office, I would like to give one small point, since I will just make two very short, I won't repeat any other points. Sir, when you talked about the right to recourse, about suppliers' accountability, I would like to say the supplier liability. The supplier is as guilty if there is a crisis. It cannot be a supplier immunity. And I would like to quote Sushma ji and Arun ji. With great respect, I would like to quote Arun ji's statement, where he had also said the same thing. So I want to remind this government about what Sushma ji and Arun ji said. It was in 2010. He was the LOP in Rajya Sabha, and Arun ji had said that in the Supplier Immunity Act, he fought to remove the word and to ensure suppliers cannot escape the law. Okay. My point is the supplier has to be liable. So it is supplier liability. There cannot be supplier immunity. So much material goes into this. So please don't do it for us, but at least do it for what this party stands for, because your tallest leaders have been Sushma ji and Arun ji, who have actually brought you to power. So please don't pack that. One last two small points are this capping of financial liability of operators. How can you put a cap of 3,000? It is 3,000 crores, sir. It's a request to you, because I don't want anything to happen, but if anything happens, how will you cap it at 3,000 crores? I think that's how will you calculate it at 3,000 crores? How have you come to this magic number is my question to the Honorable Minister. Talking about the autonomy of the regulator has to be very, very strong. You are bringing in safety measures. And please, I will talk about two very small points which nobody else has made, sir, just very small. Now, decommissioning liability. These are very two small points nobody else has said, sir. Decommissioning of liabilities. I hope every investor comes and does well in this country. But if we ever have to decommission a plant, sir, what is the safety that you have put into this bill? Because if a private player comes, when NPCIL does decommissioning, they do an extraordinarily good job. What is the guarantee that a private player will be as careful? Because the toxic cleanup is very, very critical. And sir, in RTI, last 30 seconds, sir, in RTI, concerns regarding transparency in the bill, clause 39, does not allow RTI questions in this bill partially. I understand. If it is of national security, please don't reply to us. But if there are private players, where is the question of national security? So this RTI point, sir, we have a right to information. You say that it's a transparent and open government. So what is there to hide in this government? आप जवाब दे सकते हैं ना, खोल के जवाब दीजिए, आपका छुपाने के लिए कुछ नहीं. So I request this government that whatever you are bringing in, please, I consider it's a very important bill. I understand it's in the larger interest of India. I recommend that please send it to the JPC. Let's deliberate more, think about it, and bring in a strong bill in a time-bound manner. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Arvind Sawanji.
It's okay. Thank you, Chairman, sir. The Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of the Nuclear Energy and Transformation India Bill. I would like to express my views on it, particularly when you say that in the beginning itself, whereas India is having achieved self-reliant capability in production and use of nuclear energy, recognizes the potential it offers towards rapidly meeting the ever-increasing energy needs of the country to further research and development. The half portion is correct. But when we have achieved it, why we are in such a hurry to grant permissions to all private sectors who are here? Number of people must have spoken about it. I will just point it out, certain things which are to be taken into consideration, because the bill, the Shanti bill penalizes the operators in case of a nuclear accident and asking them to compensate on the basis of the size of the plant operated. It's really a surprising one. How can you relate the size of the operation with the damage?
Exactly.
There is really, I mean, we have experienced what has happened in Bhopal, Union Carbide, how they escaped from all those things. They could not be penalized till date. And really here also some provisions are there, which I'm going to point it out to you, sir. They particularly, I'll go directly because I know the time, you won't permit me a lot of time, but then I'll go to that. What is required and what is missing in here? Dilution of a liability and accountability. Removal of a supplier liability means what exactly? Victims may not be fully compensated. Faulty suppliers may escape responsibility. Risk is shifted for corporation to citizens of the state. Safety risk with private operators. Nuclear power is not an ordinary commercial activity. Profit-driven operators may compromise on safety unless oversight is extremely strong. Low compensation ceiling. Then the regularity independence question. Is the nuclear regulator truly independent from operators and the government? Without autonomy, safety enforcement may weaken. Public consent and federal concern. Sir, we are facing in Maharashtra, Jaitapur, you know it. The concern of the public, the consent of the public is opposing it, and still we are forcing them. And that is what we need is that the fisherman community is really having, I mean, if they are having a fear about it. What is about the tomorrow? What is about the fate of their life? If the water which enters into the sea has a very high temperature, and then naturally the temperature of the water is going to increase. And if the temperature of the water increases, it is going to reflect on the production of the fish over there, and it is going to reflect on the earnings of the fishermen over there on the coastal line. And that is what a very serious issue, and that is the reason they was opposing it consistently, and therefore public hearings should be given a nuclear waste is another issue, serious issue. Sir, it has observed, nowadays we are talking about even electrical vehicles. Nobody thinks about the battery. The battery is not perishable, sir. Who's going to do that? That battery is going to create a problem. We cannot perish the battery, and nobody is having a concern. When I was industry minister, I brought it to the notice of the people. Okay, for a pollution-free, we want that the battery-driven vehicles are required, but at the same time, who is going to do that? What is the waste of the battery? Nobody has thought it till day, sir. That is what is very concern over here, and therefore, how does the government ensure that the private operators have maintained the same safety culture as public sector units? The public sector, you see, we are doing a construction at Vadwan port, and the Tarapur reactors are very close to the Vadwan port. Have you ever thought of his safety? A drone can come from the Vadwan Bandar and watch the Tarapur entire reactors over there. So the radiation issue is going to be very serious in that case if the damage takes place, and the compensation of the damage should not be related to this. And finally, sir, two major points which I have come across, a rather surprising one. This is the point, sir. The clause 81 bill provides for exclusion of jurisdiction of civil courts. It provides that the civil court shall have a jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceeding in respect of which the central government provides that no civil court shall have jurisdiction to enter any suit or proceeding in respect of which the central government, the board, the Nuclear Damage Claims Commission or Claims Commissioner is empowered to adjudicate. Under the bill, it further provides that no injunction shall be granted by any court or other authority in respect of any action taken or to be taken in pursuance of any power conferred by or under the bill. Oh my goodness, it is like the Commissioner of the Election Commission. He is being given freedom. He will not be questioned his authority. This is what we are providing here also. 81, 82 again. The bill provides for protection of action taken in good faith. What do you mean by good faith? Who is going to question that good faith? It's a good faith. I have taken action against the good faith. It provides that no suit, prosecution or other legal proceeding shall be against the central government or the board or the council or any person acting on behalf for anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under the bill or the rules and regulation made thereunder. Both these provisions are very serious, sir. And I am really, that's the reason I think my colleague Supriya ji has also said that why not send the bill to the JPC? Now I to demand that it needs an elaborate discussion in detail. Elaborate discussion is required, and therefore it should be sent to the, otherwise, see, I know that the privatization is very, very loving issue. Very, very concerned issue, because there are industrialists who are very close to, and you feel that once the freedom is given, they'll go on producing the electricity power for the country. This is not so. But the concern is, I have expressed my concern, and therefore I once again demand that the bill should be sent to the JPC. One can discuss this elaborately, and let us bring a unanimous bill for the country. Thank you so much, sir.
Very good.
Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We stand here today at a critical juncture in our nation's history. This Shanti Bill, which is before this House, has the government speaking grandly of harnessing the immense energy released by splitting the atom. Yet it seems to have failed to expend even a fraction of that energy in drafting a bill that is coherent, rigorous, and not full of loopholes. This is full of loopholes. Where the late Pandit Nehruji had laid the foundations for our nuclear program, and Dr. Manmohan Singh ji carried the Indo-US nuclear deal of 2008 across the last mile and lifted India out of isolation into an era of strategic confidence in nuclear power, this bill now confronts us with a disappointing reversal, as a vision that once expanded horizons gives way to ambiguity, deepens uncertainty as to whether and where India's nuclear power framework is really headed. I have high regard for the Honourable Minister who is here today, but there are serious errors and omissions that other speakers have already pointed out. We have mastered nuclear fusion and fission, but not apparently legislative precision. The Shanti Bill is a milestone, Mr. Minister, but for the wrong reasons. It is written with exceptions, heavy on discretion, and largely indifferent to public welfare. I am not sure, Mr. Chairman, whether it is a nuclear bill or an unclear bill. Now, before I outline my concerns, I must candidly state that the bill in its current form contains such fundamental structural flaws, as colleagues have pointed out, that it requires comprehensive reworking rather than cosmetic amendments. Ideally, it should have been referred to a committee, a standing committee or a joint parliamentary committee for further consideration. But if we are going to discuss it today, sir, let me enumerate my critical concerns. The very preamble of the bill, which I have here, characterizes nuclear energy as a, quote, clean and abundant source for electricity and hydrogen production. No quarrel there, and I'm not against nuclear energy myself. But this language is dangerously misleading because it completely neglects the serious, massive and irreversible risks from radioactive leaks, long-lived nuclear waste that remains hazardous for millennia, and, of course, the potential for catastrophic accidents. Moreover, India's usable uranium reserves are finite. While we do possess significant thorium-232, including in my own state of Kerala, and those are significant reserves, and we should work on them. Nonetheless, thorium-based reactors remain decades away from significant deployment. The full life cycle of nuclear fuel, from mining to waste disposal, is neither clean nor sustainable. We must be honest with the people of India about what we are asking them to accept. Now, sir, Section 3(1)(c) and (e) provide that any other company or any person explicitly permitted by the central government is eligible to apply for a license to set up and run nuclear facilities. This effectively amounts to a blanket opening up of the entire nuclear energy sector, from mining to waste management, and this will open it up to a wide range of private actors with indeterminable and indeterminate qualifications. More troubling still, the bill allows for a single composite license for multiple activities across the nuclear fuel cycle. This means one entity could control mining, fuel fabrication, reactor operation, and waste handling. Such concentration of control in any single operator or corporate group heightens systemic risk exponentially rather than containing that risk. When profit becomes the primary motive across the entire chain, safety checks could be compromised at every stage. Such blanket opening up is potentially dangerous, and giving operational control of fissile and other highly radioactive substances to private entities driven by quarterly earnings reports and the bottom line of profit, I'm afraid, significantly increases the possibility of nuclear incidents and accidents. The core of the liability reform caps total nuclear incident liability at 300 million special drawing rights, which is approximately today $460 million or 3,900 crores. Let this sink in, honourable members. This cap has not changed in 15 years, despite inflation, despite Fukushima, despite everything we've learned. For context, the Fukushima disaster cleanup costs have already exceeded $182 billion. Okay? That's several hundred times the cap proposed in this bill today in 2021. Chernobyl's total economic impact exceeded $700 billion. Yet we propose to cap liability at less than $500 million? This is grossly inadequate when measured against the potential long-term health, livelihood and environmental costs of any serious accident. This is not a safety net, Mr. Minister. It is a trapdoor through which victims could fall into decades of legal battles and inadequate compensation. The bill also removes the earlier provisions where the operator had the right to recover compensation from equipment suppliers. This means that even if an accident occurs due to faulty design, substandard parts, or negligent manufacturing by a supplier, that supplier walks away while Indian taxpayers have to bear the entire cost. This might, in cases of serious accidents, strain our economy significantly. We are effectively subsidizing the risk for private international corporations while they retain all their profits. The state underwrites catastrophic risk, Mr. Chairman, while private operators maximize returns. What kind of law is this? Chapter 3, Section 14(1)(a) makes the central government liable where the liability exceeds the amount of liability of an operator. In effect, public funds, our money, taxpayers' money, will compensate for all the damages caused by private facilities. This provision does nothing but further dilute corporate accountability for systemic failures. And Section 42 overrides the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code for nuclear facilities. So nuclear workers are removed from our country's general labour safety framework. Is this fair, Mr. Minister? The bill imposes a 3-year period for filing compensation applications, with extinction of the right to claim set for 10 years for property damage, 20 years for personal injury. Now, given the long latency periods of radiation-related diseases, cancers can appear 20, 30 years after exposure, and intergenerational genetic impacts, these limitation periods are, frankly, shamefully restrictive. They will exclude many genuine victims who develop serious health impacts only after years of exposure. Children exposed to radiation who develop leukemia at the age of 25 will find they have no legal recourse. This is not justice, Mr. Chairman. This is a statute of limitations designed to limit liability, not to compensate victims. इस बिल के हर वादे के पीछे एक कीमत छुपी है मिस्टर मिनिस्टर, और अक्सर ये कीमत वही चुकाता है जिसका फैसलों में कोई हिस्सा नहीं होता। पर उन वादों की कीमत तुम क्या जानो सरकार, यही मेरी चिंता है। Here perhaps is the most egregious provision of all. Negligence by an operator or person is recognized as a cognizable offense, but only a person duly authorized by the central government or the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board can file a complaint. Let me stress this, sir. This means that if a nuclear facility operator is criminally negligent, affected communities cannot file a complaint. Civil society organizations cannot file a complaint. Even state governments cannot directly initiate criminal proceedings against the operator. This effectively excludes those most affected from seeking justice and concentrates gatekeeping power with the very institutions that have failed in prior oversight. By limiting judicial recourse and routing both civil and criminal actions. No, sir, I'm barely halfway through.
You have taken 10 minutes.
No, sir, I have been given enough time. You give me 5 minutes more. And criminal actions through central authorities, the bill restricts victims' access to ordinary courts and their fundamental right to seek effective remedies. For an ultra-hazardous activity that can devastate entire regions, such procedural barriers perpetuate a culture of impunity. Then Chapter 4, sir, on the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, essentially retains a regulator controlled by the central government, the same government aggressively promoting nuclear expansion and its agencies, rather than creating a truly independent, multi-stakeholder authority that will be insulated from political and corporate influence. Sir, I can go ideally into clause-by-clause detail, but since you've already told me my time is running out, let me just sum up very simply. The entire regulatory arrangement is an inside job with little or no room for Indian civil society or even meaningful parliamentary oversight. Instead of clearing the fog around nuclear regulation, this arrangement thickens the fog. So Chapter 6, Section 44, grants perhaps the most dangerous power in the entire bill, as it highlights the excessive executive discretion and exemptions of this bill. It allows the central government to exempt any plant from the requirements of license or liability if, quote, the risk involved is insignificant, unquote. The term insignificant risk is not defined anywhere. It's left entirely to the executive. This provision essentially negates the entire framework of the bill, sir. It creates a backdoor through which any facility can escape oversight if the government deems it convenient.
Your point is
sir, give me 3 minutes. This kind of broad subjective exemption power undermines the very safeguards the legislation claims to establish. It will provide laxity in due diligence in a hugely critical sector. And private players will lobby for exemptions to engage in profiteering at the expense of public safety. We cannot justify this under any democratic framework. Multiple sections are granting sweeping powers on vague grounds. The bill lacks enforceable public participation mechanisms, no mandatory public hearings before licensing, no environmental impact assessment disclosure periods, no community consent mechanisms, no regular public reporting of safety inspections or radiation monitoring, no mandatory tabling in Parliament.
Kunalji, you have given 7 names.
Sir,
from your party, you have given 7 names. That's why I'm requesting.
Sir, I'll conclude in 2.5 3 minutes. Sir, मैं जो डिटेल बोल रहा हूँ सर सब कुछ जानना चाहिए, ये तो रिकॉर्ड में आना चाहिए सर।